bonds of sharing. 旅人ASEAN.
ASEAN Breakfast Call. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, good morning. This is Arlene.
Hi, good morning. This is Grace.
Hey, Grace, how are you?
I am good. I actually took a wrong train. It was heading to the wrong direction. And I was like, oh my God, where am I going? I'm not going for shopping. And then I realized that there were a lot of people. And actually, usually this way to Taman Bahagia, it's lesser people. And like today I was like, man, what's happening this morning?
Oh my God.
But other than that, I feel actually great.
I feel great too. It's the middle of the week. A lot of people probably are stressed out or feel bored of their job, But just take some time off and just, chill.
Mm-hmm. That's true. You can chill and can relax, but still do your work though.
I think you should chill like every day. Shouldn't be just on Friday evening or Saturday, Sunday. You should chill like most of the day. So
well,
talking about chill, do you know there's this event, like really huge event happening right now? Not right now, but upcoming festival. It's called the Future Music Festival, happening in Singapore.
Yeah, but this is really interesting because title says bye bye Malaysia.
And hello Singapore. Apparently used to be Malaysia used to be the organizer of the Future Music Festival, and unfortunately it has moved to Singapore. Too bad.
Well, after 3 years continuously of organizing this Asia's biggest music festival, the youth-centric and the very live event agency, the Livescape Group, is quite famous, and Future Music Australia announced a new location for Future Music Festival Asia 2015. And it is also because what happened this year, the biggest music event in Malaysia, it was sort of a bit violent and a bit chaotic due to a lot of reasons. So probably that's one of the reasons why it's moved to Singapore, which is very nearby Malaysia.
The Future Music Festival is actually one of the largest in Southeast Asia. The organizer is from Australia. It's called Future Music Australia, and it used for 3 times in a row, it used to be organized in Malaysia. It used to be something that Malaysians look forward to, but unfortunately it's moving towards a country that is beneath us, Singapore.
Well,
and the reason is, I think it's very straightforward. The reason is Singapore is a regional financial and aviation hub. It helps them to somehow promote the show better, because then people around Southeast Asia can easily access in Singapore because of it is the center of Southeast Asia in a way, if you want to say it like that. And because of that, it is seen as one of the main gateways into the region. Probably they are also looking at international audience that other than just Southeast Asian.
And also, in fact, this music festival is planning to stay in Singapore for long term, and it has set itself a great target to become Asia's largest music festival within the next 3 years. And also, at the same time, they're also targeting 20% year-on-year growth in its number of foreign attendees.
So just like what I said just now. Anyway, I think this is just based on my assumption anyway, just to put a disclaimer there. I think they're moving out of Malaysia because we have somehow not welcoming this sort of festival as much like before.
It's I think we do still welcome because we have huge fan base in Malaysia, but when you think of this huge festival, it comes with a lot of sort of censorship or stuff that Malaysian can't accept it yet at this level. Maybe they are not too open.
Censorship.
Yeah. Maybe they are not too open to certain areas and certain boundaries that they need to just let it go. Sometimes they have to let it go. Sometimes artists want to come from the international, but they can't come to Malaysia because of certain reasons, certain restrictions.
Anyway, the Future Music Festival Asia 2015, which will be held in Singapore, will be the biggest ever, with multiple mega stages, world-class sound, lights and stage production, and huge star power, with a huge pool of music superstars from Singapore and the rest of Southeast Asia. I'm sure if you get the opportunity to perform in such a stage, especially it looks like a regional and world stage.
Yeah, but when you think about it, this will become one of the biggest music festival in Asia, and the Singapore already got that opportunity to do so. Imagine how many people will actually travel to Singapore during those period of time, and Singapore will definitely grow in terms of entertainment, music industry, and that will sort of help the economic growth as well.
Unfortunately, Malaysia is losing on that part of the GDP. I would say GDP. Singapore is stealing us from us. Another area that I would like to highlight about Singapore, because I think this is something that has not been discussed well. A lot of it is based on assumption, not backed by data. But this time, thanks to Khazanah Research Institute, it somehow put a data or a statistic on Malaysia home costs. Apparently, Malaysia homes are costing more than Singapore or even the US. And this is based on, they are measuring this based on income. It's interesting if you look at Khazanah Research Institute. Recently, they have been really highlighting a lot on the disparity of the socio-economic situation and development in this country.
And then that's true. And also Malaysian houses cost 5.5 times more. So can you imagine Singapore is actually most expensive city in the world, and then the house in terms of housing, Malaysia is more expensive.
They are actually measuring it according to income. So even though it is more in relatively Singaporeans, the housing price in Singapore is definitely much more expensive than in Malaysia. But in terms of their income per home, they can actually afford it better than Malaysians can afford homes in Malaysia.
And also, in comparison, Singapore's housing prices cost 5.1% of annual median income, while houses in US, for example, cost 3.5% of the annual median income. So that's actually quite of the differences between Malaysia and Singapore if you were to compare in terms of housing costs.
So are you angry? Oh yeah, yes, South Korean. I forgot.
Okay, there you go, stereotyping me again. Yeah, but then I really hope that the housing, the cost in Malaysia can reduce a bit, because it will definitely help to open more opportunity for people to invest more money on the properties.
Mm-hmm. And they did a lot of research when it comes to the Khazanah Research Institute. Besides the home ownership, the affordability of Malaysian homes in Malaysia. Sorry about that. They also found out that Malaysians generally have limited savings, which cuts across all ethnicities, meaning that all races in Malaysia, in general, when it comes to their paycheck, they can only save probably crumbles of their paycheck and not even more than 10%.
It's really interesting because Malaysia taxation rate is lower than any other countries, but with the increasing housing cost, a lot of people seem to complain still about all this living cost in Malaysia.
Mm-hmm. And another research that they did is about the Amanah Saham Bumiputra. It's a kind of investment scheme for the Bumiputra. Based on the data obtained last year, showed that the bottom 71.4% of the ASB holders have only an average of 554 ringgit in their accounts, compared to the average top 0.2% who have 725,122 ringgit. That is a huge disparity.
That's true.
And also, according to the latest 2014 Employee Provident Funds, is a kind of social what do you call it? The social scheme. The social scheme for those for you to say for employment, social scheme for the employment, so that you can have a better retirement life later. And the data shows that the savings of the top 17.061% of the EPF members to be much higher than the total savings of the bottom 44%, or 2.85 million members of the EPF. So the richest 5.446 EPF members have on average 1.56 million ringgit in savings, while the bottom 13.5% have an average only 3,580 ringgit. There's a lot of disparity from millions to the top 5% of the Malaysians who are EPF holders. Their accumulative saving altogether is 1.5 million, while the 13%, or just put it 15%, the bottom 15% have only an accumulated savings of 4,000 ringgit.
Yep, and also despite the lower income of the households such as like televisions, refrigerators, motor vehicles, and other consumer goods, households are only able to pay for this by taking extremely expensive debt.
So Malaysia apparently is a very high debt nation, unfortunately. So another area that I would like to highlight about Malaysia that is currently being debated extensively in terms of what is happening, or whether we should go for it or not, is the TPPA. But at the other side of the spectrum, a lot of people are not aware that Malaysia is also joining RCEP. RCEP is, they say, the China version of the TPPA.
And now apparently says that RCEP could be more beneficial than TPPA.
Do you think so?
For Malaysia. Well, it's still ongoing process, isn't it? And then the agreement is still going on between the regions in ASEAN.
In fact, just to highlight Indonesia regarding on RCEP, Indonesia actually chose to be part of RCEP and totally ignore TPPA. And a lot of Malaysians were like, why don't we go the Indonesian way? And we are not really looking at that. We are we are definitely going for both RCEP and TPPA, just like Singapore and just like Vietnam. And talking about RCEP, why it is more beneficial than TPPA? Because according to the Khazanah National Berhad, again Khazanah, they are doing a lot of interesting stuff there. Malaysia stands to gain more from RCEP partners than its TPPA partners, as RCEP market is geographically more relevant to Malaysia. That is actually true. A lot of the members in TPPA, they are quite not non-Asian, but a lot of the countries that are member state of the TPPA, they are either part of Europe or Latin America or some other countries that are not necessarily geographically linked with Southeast Asia or Asia.
It looks like RCEP has more potential for Malaysia in terms of trading, because it will definitely encourage more foreign direct investment for Malaysia from China and Japan. So thus the reversing and the shrinking trend in the FDI stock from these two countries especially. And also this Khazanah Research Institute, KRI, noted that China and South Korea, they are committing to the greater tariff liberalization for goods in RCEP. So definitely Malaysia would be able to have a greater market access for this local production.
So South Korea.
Yes, again.
I don't know. I always want to highlight South Korea.
It looks like my country, South Korea, is opening gates for many other countries to deal. And then when it comes to free treatment, this sort of agreement, they can open platforms for other countries to deal with.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because South Korea is part of RCEP together with Japan. So this is one of those very few regional cooperation where all the East Asia countries are together.
And definitely, definitely in Japan and Korea are famous for producing a lot of electronics and electronic products as well as automobiles.
Samsung, Honda. One thing about RCEP that is encouraging, besides more FDI from China and Japan and also South Korea, is also because RCEP will be expected to complement ASEAN's efforts in becoming a single production base, thus ensuring that Malaysia will be on the investment radar of investors. I don't know how they are going to help ASEAN as a whole, but definitely if you look at the numbers, majority of the investors within Southeast Asia or ASEAN are countries from East Asia. So there's no doubt that East Asian countries definitely will boost the ASEAN economic community or the single market that we are moving forward towards.
And also, it doesn't mean that Malaysia is totally ignoring this TPPA agreement. They are still putting into consideration, and then they still need to look at the final terms of FTA to see how it can actually bring benefits to Malaysia.
That's true. And another area, well, we always talk about Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, the Philippines, and sometimes Thailand.
So what do we have here?
But we seldom talk about Laos. So once a while, you will have really interesting news from Laos. And I'm talking about the headline that is being discussed, which is UNDP wants NGO to be closely involved in Laos policy debate. Laos is one of the poorest, if not the poorest nation in Southeast Asia. It's still very much relying on agricultural sector to boost its GDP. But because of the ASEAN economic community, it's definitely opening up. It's definitely looking towards more development, but perhaps a more watered down development rather than the kind of vigorous policy liberalization that countries like Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia are moving towards.
So this organization called Civil Society Organization, which is CSOs, in Laos, they said it should be closely engaged in any debate involving proposed government changes to rules that it could limit their ability to operate in the country. And then definitely it will need to taken into consideration because it will definitely promote cooperation and consultation between the government and CSOS. But in fact, just a few days ago, we discussed a little bit on not on the economic wise, but then how Laos people, regions in Laos, they are forced to convert to something else in terms of religion.
To what?
From Christianity to animism. Yeah. So
You mean atheism?
Animism.
Animism?
To worship all those the animals. Like nature,
really?
yes, from Christianity.
They are forced to worship nature?
First to convert themselves into animism.
That is interesting.
So there was just touching on the human rights and the society. Now we're talking about this more into development and economic in Laos.
So the Lao government has emerged with proposed guidelines that would make a 4-year-old decree regulating an INGO, international NGO, stricter, including requiring multiple and time-consuming approvals for community projects, according to staff in international NGOs. It's really sad because Laos is one of the poorest. It has a lot of issues, especially a lot of issues regarding on land grabbing, on development that would not benefit the local population. So, and also a lot of basic needs that need to be met. And all these INGO, international developmental NGO, they are the ones that providing extra support for this community. So to restrict them to function in this area is definitely it will not be good for the Lao people.
And also definitely they have to, Laos especially, they have to depend on the foreign aid, that they need help from outside of the country itself. And then NGOs, like you mentioned, also donor countries, they have to encourage long-term development in this country as part of the, there was a round talks held once every 3 years. So this is so much like untouched countries in terms of potential economic wise and development wise. But now that the countries are looking into in terms of human rights and economic development, those are things that really need to taken into consideration.
But there's also another criticism towards UNDP, which is it stated that UNDP has not done enough to promote the government to engage with the civil society during the process of revisiting the NPA decree and INGO guidelines. In fact, there's this one personal comment by one of the one of the civil society representatives saying that when the UNDP does not have leverage, they end up just supporting the government, and they are not sure how much of the voices of the international NGO and non-governmental organization have been heard. unfortunately.
So it looks like UNDP, I mean, it doesn't have any leverage. They just ended up supporting the government, like you said. But then it's got the power to control or influence the government to accept the voices of NGOs and NPAs as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, another area that we definitely need to discuss further, besides issues related to economy, related to development, is related to human rights. I'm referring to Indonesia. So in Indonesia, the female police recruits are subjected to, guess what? Virginity tests.
Oh, that sounds pretty vulgar. Yeah, young female police recruits in Indonesia to go for the virginity test. All right.
So it's called the two fingers test. I'm not sure what do you mean. What do they mean by two fingers
Okay,
test?
I hope our listeners don't go with their own imagination here.
So Indonesia's new women officers are required to be single and vaginal, but the digital penetration test the police medical officers use as part of their physical examination leaves them feeling traumatized and humiliated. Of course.
I will feel very gross by going through this test. I mean, all those medical and the physical tests. I mean, after a woman who wants to be policewoman must undergo this virginity test, will feel definitely humiliated.
I really don't know what to comment on this. Is really shocking because sorry,
Okay,
I'm
to
just
continue from, I think you're
I'm
so
just-
shocked with this news. But apparently, one of the young applicant who was just 18, she was from Jakarta. She said she was only told that she will go for the very simple physical examination, but then they also told us that if they didn't go for the examination, they could actually resign from the selection process. And but most of us had gone through so much preparation already, and then of course she felt that she had no power to object.
Yeah. Apparently, the test is a discredited procedure that purports to assess whether a woman's hymen is intact. But talking about a woman's hymen, it's not a sign of virginity, because when there are times when there are some women when they get so active in sports or any other physical activity, their hymen would tear as well. It's not just because of sex or penetrative sex. So it's a bit unfair to judge a woman based on her virginity. And why the need to do this test at all? For what reason? They are there to be police officers, not to have sex with anyone.
Doesn't mean that they have to be a virgin for the rest of their lives as long as they are policewomen, or it will definitely affect their lives in the long term. And like, for example, they were all asked to take off their clothes, including their underwears. It was definitely humiliating, and it's not also part of their culture. I mean, nudity is not their part of culture, unlike other countries. And they're very conservative. And then only those who were, having their own menstruation could keep their underwears on.
So Malaysia, especially countries that are governed by states that Malaysia, especially states that want to implement Sharia law, don't go to this really downgraded way of trying to test a woman's virginity. I would not support it.
Well, you mentioned Malaysia is a highly religious country, and Indonesia is also one of them, and it's a predominantly Islamic country. And even though premarital sex is common there, officials and religious leaders still place a high value on the female virginity.
So with that, that's all for our news today. And we look forward to hear from you by commenting us or engage with us on our Facebook and Twitter.
And we also have this download app called TuneIn, and then please find us at Durian ASEAN.
Okay, stay tuned to the next show in a bit with Dr. Dennison.